Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games, review and preview the ones that we can, talk about the gaming news in the industry, which we'll be doing today, and of course stream for fun. So again, today, as I said, we're going to be looking at gaming news. This is August 20th through the 26th, and I got quite a good one today, and quite a bit of it too. So let me just, yeah, get my get my thing set up here real quick. Okay, so hopefully you guys are doing well. Again, if you could like the content to get it into the algorithm, all that stuff. Of course, you can always find me at Twitch at Don't Tread on Thee, and then you can also find me over at YouTube at Gaming Garbage 22. I also did make a Discord, and we hit 100 subscribers, so I think that's awesome. And yeah, I'll be getting that set up. And this is just a way to kind of give updates a little easier through the community, and also to have kind of a better integration of allowing me and also you guys to be able to find each other to play games together and stuff. Part of this is just not just giving news or giving you entertainment or reviewing games when I can. And it's also just to kind of build a community. It's really tough to find other people to play with and to have a good time. And the clubs on Xbox don't really work, and there isn't really an overall arching thing either on like Twitter or anything like that or on YouTube. And so, yeah, I kind of want to create something, and yeah, to be able to play with you guys and have you guys too play with each other. And it'd be awesome to have that type of multiplayer integration again, kind of the co-opness. And yeah, there's plenty of different games. So let me know what you think about that. Let me know what you'd like to see as channels in Discord, and I'll go ahead and get those set up. And I'll probably be launching this sometime in September. I just want to kind of finalize a few things and learn a little bit more about the platform and do it justice. So let's go ahead and get into gaming news. So the first big thing is the Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal. So there's been some more information on this, and the UK CMA, they are the last ones out of everyone else in the world that basically has to approve of Microsoft in this deal. And so they've been working with Microsoft on a new deal to include Ubisoft, so that they can basically be the ones controlling the streaming for Activision King games. And most of these are mobile games. And so what does this mean exactly? Well, CMA was worried about Microsoft owning 70% of the streaming out there, the cloud gaming, which they do, like globally. They own a lot of the space. And the CMA was worried about that type of monopoly, and these games from Activision Blizzard would just give them more of that. And so they're like, nope, initially, we don't want to give this to you. Everyone else did, which is great. But yeah, they still got to get through the CMA in the UK. And so this deal specifically allows Ubisoft as a third party to basically be an in-between person for Activision Blizzard games to be streamed on Microsoft. And this also includes Xbox Game Pass, because some of those games you can just stream them without having to actually download them at all. So Ubisoft is excited about this because, of course, they're going to be making some money. But Microsoft knows, too, that they have to do something. Otherwise, there's billions on the line, literally in just a few weeks, that they have to pay. Because, basically, contractually, when you're going to go through a deal, you got to spend some money if you're kind of late to finishing the contract or finishing the deal. This is not uncommon. And so, yeah, they're looking at like an extra $3 or $4 billion if they're late that they got to pay Activision Blizzard directly. And then also Activision Blizzard, the deal itself needs to be revised, which has been revised to about $75 billion instead of 69 because, well, Activision Blizzard stock is worth more now. And they got to buy all of that stock. And so, yeah, this is now looking to be an extra $10 million-ish than what they were planning on, for a grand total of like 78, 79 billion. And man, that's so much money. Let's see. This too with the CMA, it all depends on the deal, and Ubisoft has to get involved, so that's a whole nother party. And this will likely delay any games coming to Game Pass. I personally think this year. I think this still has to be done. Things got to be finalized. There needs to be details so that the CMA likes the deal between Microsoft and Ubisoft. And finally, when all of that can be done, then the deal can officially be done, and then Activision Blizzard games can finally start actually becoming part of Game Pass, and actually Microsoft owning the studio. And so let me dig a little more into what these games are. So as I said earlier, these are Activision Blizzard King games. Now, King was an independent company back when, and they were kind of focused on the mobile space. And Activision Blizzard bought them for about $6 billion back when, in the 2010s. And they've had that company as a subsidiary for some time, and they really work on kind of the more of the mobile game aspect side of Activision Blizzard. And so this would just be the King games that Ubisoft would be able to control. And so it's not everything. It's not all of the Call of Duties. It's not Overwatch. It's not Diablo. It would be the kind of the mobile side of games that King subsidiary has or has, done for Activision Blizzard. And so it would be like Bejeweled and some of the other kind of like mobile style of games. Nothing overly serious. Also, a lot of the King games that were announced were also discontinued. So it's not like there's a ton of these. We don't know if other mobile games like Call of Duty Mobile are going to be wrapped into this. Technically, they're not done over King, but again, we don't know really the specific details. But yeah, we'll have to see really with what happens with that. Next is Baldur Gates 3 will likely be coming to Xbox this year. So this is kind of a surprise. So initially the issue was Baldur's Gate 3 couldn't run the same on Series S and on Series X. And so this came out on PC first. Sony is going to be getting Baldur's Gate 3, I think, on September 5th or 6th, which is just, a couple weeks away, folks. But it was going to be delayed probably about a year for Xbox, and it was because the Series S, the hardware, just can't computate and keep up on a computational level like the X can. And so this has been an issue too for other studios that they've made it known. But what Microsoft wants is to be like, hey, the version for X has to be the same for S. We don't want different versions. We want things to kind of, quote, be fair. But the S has really been holding back some games and other projects. And so instead of having to completely kind of redo certain things or to redo textures or how things are rendered in the game, Larian Studios is just like, hey, can we just remove some features? And Xbox, Microsoft has finally agreed to that. And so the biggest difference is going to be that the S will no longer have the split screen mode, but the Series X version will, because it can handle it. And removing the split screen feature from the S version of the game, they won't have to compromise a lot of the textures or draw distance or other quality features of Baldur's Gate 3. So that's wonderful. So that's definitely going to speed up production. They got approval, I want to say, on Friday. It was actually announced on Friday by a smaller time gaming magazine, and I was able also to see that on another one. And so it looks like that's actually going to be a pretty good thing. And I was able to read some of the quotes from Larian Studios about this thing. So Larian's very happy about this, and personally I am too. That's great. Because, the S has been holding the games back. Developers have been complaining about this for a few years now. And I think this is going to kind of pave the way for Xbox to finally maybe get rid of the S. They still say technically they are fully devoted to keeping the S around, keeping it a part of their space. But the S has been nothing but a thorn in their side from the beginning. Next to, I do want to say there also is no launch date yet. For the X. But it is coming. It is coming. Next is Assassin's Creed Mirage is now coming out a week early. Yay. And so instead of the 12th, it's coming out on the 5th now. And I personally, you guys voted for this way back when, before the channel was anywhere near 100. But some of you guys did vote for this as a game that you wanted to see for this year. This game, too, has been pushed back a couple of times. It's finally coming out in October. But there have been some concerns with Assassin's Creed Mirage, and that I'm just not really sure if. Well, I'm sure I don't want to get the game, at least at the full price tag of $50. I don't think it's worth $50. We know it's about 20 hours of gameplay, and that this was originally supposed to be DLC for Valhalla instead of actually being a full-fledged Assassin's Creed game, which I think is cheap. And then too, the whole thing of going back to the old roots of what Assassin's Creed was. Yes, it looks that way, but the issue that I have is there's not really, how can I say it? There's not really, there's some new features in there that make the gameplay easier. And already I feel like the gameplay in Assassin's Creed is not overly difficult, even when there's multiple opponents. So they have a new feature where there's like a chain reaction mode where basically you kind of go into a paused or slow motion view, and you're basically able to select, what they showed was 3 enemies in the gameplay reveal at the Ubisoft showcase, and you can just, the game just takes care of it for you, and I think that's kind of cheap. So there's multiple reasons why I don't want to buy this. So instead of getting Assassin's Creed Mirage, I'm going to be getting Lords of the Fallen. That's still going to be in October, just going to be maybe a week or two later. So you can stay tuned for that. We also heard some awesome news about Bored Ape today. So if you don't know about Bored Ape, that's been an NFT thing going on for a few years now, where basically you just quote-unquote own a receipt that you paid for a picture, which is kind of dumb. There's been some other celebrities that have had their like NFTs stolen or whatever. It's, yeah, and there's a whole game too that is just quite a scam to just try to get you to spend more money. And good grief, folks, stay away from NFTs as much as you can. But the good news is that Bored Ape is being sued by the investors. So there's a class action lawsuit that basically is saying the NFTs were a pump and dump scam, and where there was collusion between the company of Bored Ape and also the celebrities. We're finding out that the celebrities didn't actually pay for these. They were given these NFTs to try to help pump and push up the value of these NFTs and promote them themselves. So I wonder if there's going to be other lawsuits for that for the celebrities. As we already know, some celebrities are already in trouble. Oh man, I can't remember his name now. Some of you sports guys are going to hate me. But anyway, yeah, NFL quarterback. And he's also being sued a good chunk of money for pushing the FTX crypto exchange. And turns out that was a scam too, and so he's being sued for that. So yeah, what a mess. Some not so good news. We did see that Zynga is now making a new NFT game called Sugar Town, where basically you buy these, quote, tokens to be able to gain and purchase in-game currency so that you can progress in the game. Isn't that nice? So think of a game that has in-game currency, right? You usually earn it and kind of build it up over time, and then you spend it in the game for equipment or colors or whatever. But this, you actually have to buy a token in order to even do that. That's kind of crazy. So, yeah, that is the worst pay-to-play model I've ever heard of. I mean, it's free, but not really. That's horrible, folks. Oh, another thing, too, since we're on the topic of entities, I did watch some things on Madden 24, and so far, there's no NFTs in the game. So maybe there will never be NFTs in the game, but we also know that there will be the Football Club 24, which is basically EA's FIFA game. And we do know that EA Sports and Nike has a deal with Dot Swoosh, which is a NFT sports thing that has already started. Some of the content's already been created, and the, quote, first round of digital collectibles are ready to be implemented. So we just got to figure out which game this is going to be in. Maybe it will be Madden later in the future, but yeah, we're not sure. We don't really know. But I do want to say, from what I can tell with the reviews I've looked at and stuff and the gameplay I've seen, there's nothing related to NFTs at all in Madden 24, which I am happy about that. So I do want to say I was wrong on that point. I did have a video earlier this year where it looked like, hey, EA was going to be shoving NFTs in our face with collaborating with Nike in in the next big game where you shoes, jerseys, and whatever else. But yeah, we'll have to. But yeah, luckily it's not in there, so that's great. Oh man. Okay, yeah, this is a big one. So, Star Citizen. So it has been a pretty big game, but Star Citizen is going to be having a major update, which is great. And but due to the cost of running their servers with so many people hopping on and then just leaving, it's costing them a good chunk of money, the company. And so what they're doing now is they're wanting to limit how many people can actually join in. And so they're wanting to do what they're calling in their article waves of inviting people in. And if you want to be in the first wave, or maybe any of the waves at all, you either have to play a ton, have a lot of play time, or you can pay for the invite to actually be in to see what they're doing with the update in their servers. Boy, doesn't that sound just trashy. So, yeah, can you believe that? You gotta... This... And I want to break down some numbers, but... now you gotta pay to even just see the updates. I would rather just wait for the update to show up and then just try it for myself, but they used to do all this for free. They'd have the devs kind of show stuff off in the server that people were invited to, but yeah, now you gotta pay for it. So, yay, how fun is that? So, for those of you that don't play Star Citizen, here's some numbers. This was started on Kickstarter back in 2012. The funding so far for the game is $2.6 million. And it's still an unfinished game. It's not anywhere near it. Like, some people think this is just going to be beta forever. Which is horrible. Yeah, $2.6 million and you're telling me the game's not finished. And it's been 11 years. That's insane. Also, some people have invested tens of thousands of dollars in this game by now. And they're not enjoying the fact that now they need to pay just to see what some of the updates are that they're doing in the game, which most of the time it's ships. But yeah, what a bummer. And honestly, I don't know of really any people that really play Star Citizen. I remember being excited for it when I was in college. I mean, that was like 13 years ago. Like back in 2010 when we first kind of started hearing about this, maybe 2011. But I mean, come on, folks. It's just crazy what they're doing with this. Hey, Cornhusker, how you doing? Thanks for joining. You've probably been there a while, huh? But hey, that's okay. I'm reading my notes here. But yeah, Star Citizen has been a game that's been going on for quite some time. And not only are they now having you pay to actually get into the server just to see what the devs have been up to lately with their crappy part of the game, they now also have a subscription service of $10 a month that give you in-game points and a digital magazine in full color, because they wouldn't want it to be black and white, of course, because, we're not in the 1960s. And then also to be able to play test ships on a monthly basis. So it's like, do they already not have enough money on this? Like, what are they doing with $2.6 million? This is crazy. And then on top of it, the company is worth $600 million. So the crowdfunding part is 2.6. They're going to have a subscription service for $10, and they're also going to have you pay to actually be invited now to share with the community what the devs have been building. And then yeah, they're a company of $600 million. Man, in my opinion, this is a dying game. And for the hardcore fans out there, that's fine. Everybody likes to spend their money on stuff. There's no issue there. But that is crazy. That is crazy. You're telling me that they can't afford the server service costs to just share something for an hour, maybe a couple of hours. Um, that's yeah, that's frustrating. And even in their letter basically to the community, they're like, well, you know, since you guys aren't doing anything actually in the game or providing much feedback, we need to start charging for it because there's too many of you. And there's even indications in the letter that people basically just hop on, see what's up, and then leave. And they haven't really made any new content for the game in a long time. Like, there's nothing to do. There's new ships to look at, which is great. But overall, the last several years, the community hasn't really gotten anything. They've already done everything. You know, they've had 11 years to play this. It's lived longer than Destiny. And yeah, think of that. And yeah, they're just not creating much. So yeah, what a horrible company. Next is... Yeah, I wanted to get to that too. Next, I got to talk about the Metal Gear Solid Collection, Volume 1. So this is going to come out in October. Lots of good stuff coming out in October, actually. But this one I'm not as excited about, and I'll tell you why. It looks like this is going to be another Red Dead bundle. So we first heard that from Rockstar, Red Dead is going to have one DLC, you know, The Undead Nightmare, which is zombies, and they're packaging it all together for basically $50, which is not worth $50 because you could get the entire Game of the Year edition with all DLC for like $30, and so what's even the point? But yeah, the Metal Gear Solid collection is going to have 5 games along with digital art books and all this other stuff for $60. It's also going to come out on Sony, PlayStation, and Microsoft Xbox, which is great. But we got to have some people share their preview that they got to see, and boy, it didn't necessarily look too good. So initially, these were games that were made at 60 frames per second, at least Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3. Snake Eater. But yeah, these were initially made to run at 60 frames. Now, I didn't get to see that because I didn't have a TV that had 60 frames at the time. But yeah, these were made to run generations ago. You know, PlayStation 3 and on 360 at 60 frames. And they're not running that. Now, granted, this got to be shown on a Switch. This is where they previewed this. But you would even think the Switch would be able to run it at 60 frames. Because it's not like they really did anything. These are the old HD collections of the game. They didn't change anything, they didn't add anything, they didn't improve anything, no extra textures, probably no bug fixes either, to be honest. And they still want us to pay $60. Now, $60 for if you're a huge Metal Gear Solid fan, just for the 3 main games, 1, 2, and 3, yeah, that's probably a good deal. But since it's Volume 1, there's probably future volumes coming out, and those can be like Metal Gear Solid 4 and 5, and Peace Walker, and I think there's another one out there. Substance? Anyway. And Ground Zeroes. That was like a prelogue, really. Or a prologue for Metal Gear Solid 5, Phantom Pain. But, I mean, this doesn't really bode well. And, two, like, on the Switch, you know, people were expressing that during the preview, there were still some frame rate issues having a steady 30 frames a second. And it's like, it shouldn't be having that issue. These HD editions are, like, early 2010s. And if we're already seeing this with no upgrades from the HD collections, it's a worse frame rate, it's not locked at 30 frames to begin with, you know, what is Metal Gear Solid Delta going to be like? I mean, that's supposed to come out next year, I think. And Metal Gear Solid Delta isn't going to be a new game. It's going to be based off of Metal Gear Solid 3. I mean, I would like to see a Metal Gear Solid 6. Something. Metal Gear Liquid 1? I mean, come up with something. Metal Gear Plasma. But good grief, they're just reiterating all of this stuff. And if you're going to be buying this and be getting the Metal Gear Solid 3 HD, I mean, do you really want it? Do you want to spend your money on that? if Metal Gear Solid Delta is going to be coming out in a year, year and a half? Probably not. I don't know. I think I'm honestly going to wait on this one because that's not what I would expect from a studio, especially from Konami. But Konami isn't ran by Kojima anymore, unfortunately. He was removed from the company, and then basically he started Death Stranding. And he's got some other projects in the works, so good luck to him. I hope he does a great job. He usually does. But I mean, come on. I mean, we've had some remakes that have been great, like the Dead Space remake. Redone textures, redone voicing. They tweaked some things in the game. They've made things. They've fixed some of the bugs. Of course, they still had the original blueprint, but they tweaked some things to make it better, or more interesting, or more fun. Um, the texture quality. Holy smokes, folks! I mean, it looks so good. But how frustrating. That was January 2023. This is coming out in October of this year, and we're getting the old stuff from from 10 years ago. It's like, really? That's kind of a bum. Yeah, that's kind of an L for me. So, personally, I'm going to wait. I was thinking of just grabbing this right out of the gate, too. But I'm going to wait for a sale. Probably around, 30 or 40 bucks. Next is going to be Armored Core 6. So this literally just released a couple of days ago on the 25th. And so far, it's been pretty well received. Most people like it. This is a From Software game. Armored Core has been around since the 90s. A very old game, folks. I grew up playing with it, and then basically we had like 15 years where we didn't hear about Armored Core. And so most people are coming to the franchise, new, and this is kind of their first experience. So what I've seen so far and some of the previews, Young has one if you want to take a look at it on his channel. And he talks about it too, actually getting the full copy and playing it. And here's some information that we have about it. So this does not... Oh, let me start with the score. So on Metacritic, the professional reviewers, they give it, 80s. Any high and low 80s. The user score is 7.5, or a 75 out of 100. So those are relatively close, and that's a good sign. Those are just for the reviews on PC. The professional scores for console are still in the 80s, but there isn't anything for the user score yet. So we're waiting to see more information on Metacritic on that. The game itself, this is not a Souls game. There will be some aspects that feel like a Souls game, but it's definitely not a Souls game. So don't expect it to be like that. It's also not as big or as long. There is New Game Plus, which is good, but very different combat. And so this is going to be very fast, very quick combat. I mean, this is going to be like Call of Duty intense, probably, sometimes. This isn't going to be slow, where you can kind of see things easily and adjust and know what button to push to counter or whatever. This is just... And this isn't either button mashing, but this is a very fast, tactical kind of shooter engager, all in real time. This is going to be very tactical. The gameplay, too, is also going to be very focused, so you got to be very intentional with what you're doing and knowing what you have to do. Again, you can't just fire blindly and just hope to get some kills or whatever. This is going to be a long-haul, endurance, fast-paced combat type of game with all of the enemies in the game, and even the bosses even a lot more so. And so what we know is that some of the bosses and even some of the missions, it can take hours with trying to beat them. So it all depends on kind of your skill level, your play level, whatever you want to call it, how you're adjusting and adapting in the game. And the game is designed in such a way that different legs and different weapons and all of that type of stuff is going to have an effect on your style and gameplay and how your core moves and etc. And so you're probably not going to be able to create something and just run through the entire game that way. It's very unlikely. You'll probably have to go back and tweak some stuff and then try again. And what's nice is you don't have to try the mission all the way over again if you fail. There are checkpoints, And during those checkpoints, you can also go back to your garage, switch and tweak some parts and weapons around, and then try again. But even Young, who really enjoyed this game, just said, he had one boss in particular that was a couple of hours of trying to beat this thing, and he finally beat it. So again, it's very Dark Soulsy in that way, where some of these bosses are going to be really tough, some of these environments are going to be difficult, you're going to want to mentally prepare for that. And again, this type of game isn't for everybody. Again, it's a From Software game. And they design and make the games that they want, and it's for the people that are going to enjoy those characteristics of a From Software game. They're not trying to be like everybody else. So this game is not going to be for everybody, but generally speaking, people are really enjoying this game. There is a little bit of a lack of enemy variety in the game. Again, it's a lot of mechs, it's a lot of like tanks maybe, and a lot of other stuff like that. There is also PvP in the game, 1v1. So far, there is any other plans to expand that or to add to it or anything. It's just going to be 1v1, which that takes it back all the way to what I played in '97, which that was 1v1, and that was freaking intense, folks. One thing I wish they did add back was in '97, '98, their games had an arena against NPCs, and the NPC would there'd be 50 of them. Or 49, actually. You'd start at number 50, and there's 49, other pilots above you, and you'd basically work through the arena as you would unlock gear and weapons and whatever else, and you'd work up through the ranks to try to get to rank 1. And I wish they could bring that back. That would be cool. But it doesn't sound like they did. So this game overall is going to be brutal. It's going to be very challenging, but also a very rewarding game. And I feel like there's a lot of games that miss that aspect today, is that a lot of people didn't necessarily grow up with the NES or the Super Nintendo. They didn't grow up before save files, right? They don't know what it means to have a challenging game. And the games today aren't really built like then. And so, but this game is going to be more kind of like Elden Ring or some of the Dark Souls or Demon Souls or Bloodborne or Sekiro. They are going to be more difficult and challenging. But, if you can hang in there and beat it, boy, it's that much more rewarding if you can endure. There's also, we found out, multiple endings to the game. So there's actually a benefit to replaying the game, like with New Game Plus. Also, depending on what kind of decisions you make throughout the game, it's also going to depend what type of missions are available to you. So some of the missions your first time through, you're not going to be able to play them because of the decisions that you made. So you'll have to make some different decisions to discover those other missions. So overall, this is $60. There's not a ton of cutscenes in the game. A lot of it is still kind of just in-game story. And sometimes it's just kind of character picks having conversations. Like if you kind of remember Metal Gear, there's a lot of that where you're just kind of looking, kind of watching a conversation, if that makes sense. The great thing is no monetization, and all the visual customizations and cosmetics are all free and basically endless. The amount of patterns, the amount of colors, the amount of luster and textures and all of that stuff, it's free, folks. It's wonderful. So yeah, the first playthrough is going to take you about 30 hours. And yeah, the game is $60. So anyway, if you're interested, I'm eventually going to have this game too. I'm going to, again, wait for a sale. Probably later this year. I'll be picking it up on like Black Friday or something. And then I'll be streaming it here on the channel. In other news, we also got Overwatch 2. The director responds to only a 9% like ratio on Steam. Basically said, well, we're going to make it good again. We're going to make it better, and we're going to keep improving it forward. Well, no duh. Of course you want to do that. But they're probably not going to be changing anything major in the game. They just want to keep making more content for it. And that's it. So good luck, Overwatch 2. You're basically done. I think Overwatch 2 is so bad that there isn't going to be an Overwatch 3. So Blizzard better figure out what else they're going to make, because no one's going to want to buy Overwatch 3 after this entire debacle of number 2. It doesn't even deserve to be number 2 because nothing's different about it. And they're, in my opinion, they're actually making less content for it with fewer maps than with Overwatch 1. So this is like a downgrade in the franchise that's just even more monetized. And it's a real slap in the face, too, to actually get content or pay for future content, which I think was $40. And these hero missions aren't included in that. You got to pay an extra $15 like every time. It's like, are you kidding me? You're already monetizing the crap out of it. You know, you're making it 8 months to grind out one skin for one character. Are you out of your freaking mind? Yeah, and I played it a little bit, and it feels just like number 1. Nothing different. Anyway, hey, if you like it, you know, no worries. We like what we like, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I can't get behind a company that keeps screwing up their games because they're more focused on monetizing it and getting ever creative ways to get you to spend money than actually just making a product, making a game, folks. And again, Diablo 4, we've talked about this in previous iterations too with gaming news. It's just like the amount of monetization and saying they can't change things or fix things until later when they clearly did it with like Diablo 2 and 3. And it's like, I am so tired of Blizzard's bullshit. I really am. I used to be excited for what they would make, but I am so tired of just the microtransaction-y stuff. It is old. It is so frustrating. And, boy, I'm over it. Let's see. Roblox. They hit the news. They're also going to be getting sued, unfortunately. But for a good reason. Because they're basically allowing gambling through third-party websites. By using, and these third-party websites are allowed to use Roblox bucks. So Roblox actually gets a percentage, and who plays Roblox? Minors. Definitely minors, like less than 10, up to like 13, 15 play, you know, Roblox. And so to have gambling, definitely in the face of guaranteed minors, that's not okay. That's not a behavior that any of us would want for our kids or any other type of addiction, right? And so the fact that they're allowing this and also getting a cut from these third-party websites, yeah, they're going to be getting sued, folks. And there's probably going to be some penalties, too. So yeah, how horrible is that? Oh my goodness, it's just like having GTA with their entire casino gambling thing, you know, where they stripped 200 cars out of the game and shoved them into their slot machines in their casino, the Diamond Casino, so that you could, you know, basically try to get them back by spending money. So isn't that great? Yeah, oh my gosh. That too is just kind of getting out of control. Let's see, something else we heard is Bioware. So we found out that actually Bioware, they had a blog. You know, they announce stuff with the company every so often. And Bioware, we found out, is actually going to have about 20% of their studio laid off. Ooh, that's a lot. And actually, there's a lot of the administration and a lot of the management, which, yay, that might be kind of a good thing. But they're also losing some of their head directors. And some of these directors are responsible for what we loved about Inquisition and Dragon Age 1 and 2. So the fact that we're losing some of those people is not what I would call a good thing. We like that type of management. Okay, they care about the game, they're investing in it, they're making something the best that they can. But yeah, losing 20% while they're still making Dragon Age Dreadwolf? I mean, does that mean that Dreadwolf is now going to be in trouble a little bit? And again, this is from a blog post from Bioware, also reposted by other people out on YouTube and Reddit and whatever else is out there. No, I don't even keep up with it, or X, you know. But yeah, these layoffs, they're going to be happening over the next few weeks to few months. They're going to let people off kind of in waves. One thing we did hear, though, is that BioWare did say in their post that they're going to be focusing on single-player experiences. Yay! Now, these folks made the Mass Effect games, which are flippin' amazing. They're wonderful. The gunplay in number 1 is pretty bad. It gets better, thankfully. The connection and stories with the character development of the secondary and tertiary characters is great. My favorite character is still Edie and Joker. Thank you very much. Oh, and the Krogan. Grunt, I think. She's just a beast of a brick. Anyway, but yeah, they're going to be focusing more on single-player stuff, just like Mass Effect, just like Dragon Age, which is great. They did also make Anthem, well, they've learned from Anthem, and they don't want to do really any more live service. So that is a good thing that we hear. But there's also, well, if they're not going to do live service, then technically they don't need as many people to be working on the next game. And that's where I think these layoffs are ultimately coming from, is that as times are getting technically more difficult with the recession, the cost of taking on credit or debt is a lot more expensive with interest rates than it used to be. And there's also just less availability. You got to cut back. If you've expanded with credit, you got to retract when credit isn't available or interest rates are just too high. So, but thankfully, we're going to see more single player and less live service. That is great. We also learned that BioWare also lost a contract with EA for quality assurance. So they had EA do the checks of the games and stuff, and well, that's not going to happen anymore either. So there's definitely some pretty big changes, and again, is that going to affect Dragon Age Dreadwolf? We don't know. And then, yeah, they've also lost some of those people and directors that helped make what we loved about Dragon Age in the first place. I hope they at least got some input with Dreadwolf, and that they got a good severance package, and that they'll be taken care of before they completely just get laid off. But I don't know. We'll have to see. Let's see. Lastly, so there's been something called bad luck protection. I don't know if you've heard this before. I've heard of it, but I didn't know the term. But yeah, there's been implementation of bad luck protection in microtransactions. Basically loot boxes, right? Which they don't call them that anymore because loot boxes got bad rep, which they should. But basically, bad luck protection is where once you try enough times to basically get some nicer items like a legendary or ultra rare item, well, basically the game gives it to you. It says, oh, well, thanks for trying 30 times. Here's the item you really want. But do you really want to spend $5 30 times just to try to get something? And this is actually implemented in quite a few games today. Is that people have complained about, hey, excuse me. That's what happens when you get old, folks. You just choke on air. It's horrible. So yeah, basically some games, like, you can roll and roll and roll and roll forever, just like what you got to see in Diablo Immortal, is that people could literally spend hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get a complete set of armor, which is insane. And, yeah, so there's this bad luck protection, which of course they design it that way. It's not bad luck, folks, it's planned. But now it's a big enough issue and people hate it enough, some companies are starting to implement this insurance into their games. But again, we shouldn't even be playing these. We should be playing games like God of War, Elden Ring, Starfield, Hogwarts Legacy, Armored Core, Dead Space Remake, okay? We should be playing that stuff. The games that are totally flushed with microtransaction BS, we shouldn't be paying for that stuff because it's just, not only is it less content in the long run, it's worse content. The quality sucks. The bugs are insane. I even got into a little bit of a hissy fit argument. Of course not me. Why would I do that? Because people are some idiots out there. But got into a disagreement about, like, Starfield, in my opinion, isn't really going to be that bad of a game with the bugs because we already have so many other games that are buggy to the point where they completely destroy save files, delete characters, glitch out to death. I mean, game breaking crap. Like, that is more common today. And just about every single game now needs at least 2 updates in order to be completely up and running. They got to fix one for the servers and multiplayer, and then they got to fix another one for like some of the game-breaking bugs at the beginning of the game. And there's always more found later. But I mean, this is ridiculous. And like, I personally am not okay with that, but like we had a game like Elden Ring. Unfortunately, not on PC, but on the consoles, it ran almost perfect. The only issue that we really had that I remember was the first 48 hours they put out a patch for the multiplayer. That was it. And they did some rebalancing of like Rivers of Blood Sword, you know, because it was too OP and a few other things. And then we got all of the PvP for free, like the arena, which was great. But man, games should not be broken like Cyberpunk. Games shouldn't be totally lackluster of content and glitchy like Saints Row. Games shouldn't be such a mess that, you know, Blizzard has to cut out a ton of content for PvE for Overwatch 2 because, quote, it's too hard. I mean, this is the state of our gaming, folks. This is what they're making, and I ain't okay with it. And so, yeah, is Starfield going to have bugs? Sure it is. But Bethesda has these bugs in their games because the games are so huge. The games are so focused on creating something amazing or that's never been done before. And yeah, there's going to be bugs when you're ambitious like that. We have games that aren't even close to being freaking ambitious. Okay? Like Gollum, for example, or Forspoken, where there's glitches and bugs and lack of content and they're not a passion project and they're just trash. They're freaking trash. And people are still saying that, like, oh, I'm not excited for Starfield because of all of the bugs. Are you out of your freaking mind? Are you out of your freaking mind? There's basically going to be 100 planets that we're going to be able to explore that has life on them. There's 1,000 planets out there, which Bethesda is known for their modding. So yeah, modders are going to be able to get out there and play around probably next year sometime. And then we have some of the biggest areas ever created or handcrafted, like some of the cities. Like, I'm excited for this game. I can't wait. I mean, if it's absolutely trash, you guys can shove it in my face, and that's totally okay. I'll take a pie in the face. But I am so tired of... It used to be Bethesda games were glitchy, right? And now it's pretty much all of them. And it sucks. I think it sucks. So, people say glitches with Bethesda. It's like, well, they kind of all have glitches. What are you even talking about? And again, like, Cyberpunk was a really ambitious project. And it should have had more time in the oven. But, you know, at least Fallout 76 was working. Just didn't have any content in it. That was the issue. And still after 2 years, you know, they fixed it. Congratulations to them. But I'm glad they're not going back to that. I'm glad they're going back to their roots in making Starfield. And I can't wait to play it. But yeah, you know, keep your blinders off, folks. Try to be open-minded in the game space. And even I try to do that. You know, I love Elden Ring, but it is not a perfect game. And I really love some of the older style games back when, okay, like World of War, but it is not a perfect game. And the more we can be objective, the more we can see the BS. Okay? We can put those BS glasses on more often and actually see the trash and put our money where we really want it to be. And that's what we should be focusing on as a gaming community. So I don't think I really had much else. I think I went through everything. I will be doing the Gamescom. I'm going to take time to watch that actually tonight. And then I'm going to report on it tomorrow. Just kind of my overall thoughts on it. Just to finish some things up, of course, you can follow me at Twitch at Don't Tread on Thee. You can also follow me at YouTube at Gaming Garbage 22. Lion and I are going to be continuing to go through the Ghost Recon Wildlands playthrough, and then Shepard and I are going to be finishing World at War next week. And then my wife and I were doing It Takes Two and sharing our marital advice. We're not licensed or anything. We're just doing it because we love you. For whoever it can help. And then I will be... Thank you guys, too, for voting. I will be doing the next Off the Cuff on Game Pass as we're going through Game Pass to really see in the next 13 months left if it's really worth it or not. So hopefully you'll join me for that. And I apologize. Good grief. I apologize for Battlefield 1. That's actually a great example, by the way, if you have some time, just a few minutes. I did a look at Off the Cuff of Battlefield 1, and the first 2.5-ish minutes are just super stuttery and glitchy sounding, and that's what happens when you're not plugged into a party on Xbox while you're streaming. That's exactly what it sounds like, but you can tell at some point everything was suddenly fixed and sounded great, and that's right when I went into a party. So if you kind of want to know what that sounds like, there's a perfect example on Battlefield 1 right there. You can find that in the Off the Cuff playlist. Also, I want to remind you folks, I do have some hats left for the Starfield hats. So this all started as a kind of a small project. I just wanted to buy something Starfield, and I really enjoy hats for myself. But I couldn't find any, and what I did find really wasn't that good. It was just somebody just kind of printing the paint on the front of the hat, and I was like, well, that kind of looks like crap. So, and I thought, well, if I'm looking for stuff, I'm sure other people are too, and if I want better quality, I'm sure other people do too. And so I have 10 hats that I've purchased and are currently getting stitched right now, where there's going to be a Constellation Starfield logo on the front, and then there's also going to be Gaming Garbage stitched in the back of the hat. And this is a normal baseball cap. This has a metal clasp, and the hat itself is a dark gray. And the Constellation logo is going to have a white ring around it to kind of help give some contrast for it to, kind of boing out of the hat. And then the gaming is going to be in green stitching, and the garbage is going to be in a lighter blue stitching. So if you're interested in that, it's $29 a hat, plus however cheaply we can make it for shipping. And we're going to be using Pirate Ship for that, because that's wholesale shipping. We'll make it a little cheaper that way. And I'm not making any money on these. I did the math, and I spent $29.50 per hat for everything. For the hat, for the stitching, for the digital processing or whatever of the logos and everything, and what's going to be on the hat. So yeah, I'm losing 50 cents a hat on this. So I'm not making anything. And the shipping is just going to be whatever it is. How you guys will pay me is just simply filling out a money order. So they have these at Walmart, they have these at Winco, at Fred Meyer. Those three places you can walk in. You can probably also get one at your bank. And if you do want one, we'll chat about details for that privately, of course. None of that will be disclosed. And then, yeah, as soon as your payment's on its way and I get it, I will ship the hat off for you. So hopefully you guys are doing good. Hang in there. There's plenty of other stuff going on. And my wife's behind me being creepy. And so I gotta go. And so I'll see you guys on the next one.